cough drop. All right.
Kicking in.
No, yeah, it's funky. It's a funky one. It's holistic. So it was like blackberry, elderberry. That's what it is. It's elderberry and zinc. So yeah, it's not that bad tasting, but that with the apple cider, and now I have this like ass taste in the back of my mouth.
I'm not gonna ask you why you know what an ass tastes like, but
it's well, I'm saying it's not a good taste, but it's more of like it's like a loogie taste. You know, when you cough that up and it's like that immediate, oh shit, I'm sick loogie taste.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that taste that I have in the back of my throat now.
Good times.
So anyways, do you want to do this podcast?
Let's do this podcast thing.
Sweet. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Creatures of the Night Paranormal. And you're Wendy.
And you're Chris.
Yeah, we mixed it up. You see how we do that shit sometimes?
Every once in a while we show you that we know each other's names. Good for us. Actually, if this is the first time you're ever listening to our show, Chris and I have been friends since the Dark Ages almost. I mean, that's how old we are.
I think it seems like it was the Dark Ages when we became friends because we were searching for our other person, you know, and then all of a sudden there you were, Wendy. There you were.
That is so sweet how you put that together. We were just lost in the darkness, and then we found the light, each other.
In the darkness where we paranormal hunt.
Yeah, we went back into the darkness, but together.
Together.
So it wasn't as scary. You know, it's always good to go in pairs. Yeah. Safe. Your buddy system.
Wow, I haven't heard that in a long time, but that's so true. You need your buddy when you're doing that sort of thing, especially in the dark.
Yeah.
In the scary places.
So when you find your paranormal buddy, I mean, it's like, okay, this is it. Me and you. Forever.
I don't know how people do it when it's like 4, 5, 6 to the group. How are they like so in tune? Because we do everything side by side.
Yeah. Ugh, gross. More friends. That's ridiculous. I imagine they still pair up. So you use an example of like TV shows that we watch or whatever. I mean, on Ghost Hunters, there was those two guys that really got along. And then there's Grant and Jason that really get along. And I guess if you look at Ghost Adventures, I mean, Zach and Aaron have been doing this for a long time together. So maybe, I mean, even though they seem like they kind of all work together pretty well, but for a long time it was like Aaron and Zach, and then they would pair up Jay and Billy together.
That other guy.
I don't know. I'm just trying to make it seem normal that we're really attached to each other. When all I was really trying to get at is that we have known each other for a really long time. We met each other when we were teenagers, practically.
Are you breaking up with me?
Or yes. This is it. I can't stand you anymore.
Who will I podcast with?
I'm just outgrown. I mean, so we've known each other since we were teenagers, but for a long time we were just like a part of a group of friends. Then we realized that, that we both had this shared interest, and we were like, oh my God, let's do that together always. And then it's been like 10 years now, and, we're basically like family because of all the, but, so every birthday and Christmas and even Mother's Day, you always like send me a card and I send you one, and, we're family. So we celebrate holidays together and stuff. And so my story kind of comes from the fact that not too long ago, I was like, trying to clean out some cabinets in my house. And I found a Bible. There were a bunch of books in the bottom of this cabinet, and I was trying to clean them up and straighten it. And this Bible had stuff stuck inside of it. It was kind of funny. I just sent you a text. Inside the Bible was a card that you sent me before, and it has dinosaurs on it. And it's basically like when the meteor hit the and ended the dinosaurs. And it's just thought it was funny that was inside of a Bible, like, because, they don't talk about that.
No, they sure don't. Oh my God, that is so funny. And I love that card because the dinosaurs are holding hands with their itty bitty little arms.
So it's like two T-Rexes holding hands, and the meteor's coming for them. And they're like, they're treating it like it's a shooting star. It says, oh, make a wish. It was just so funny because at first I was just like, oh my God, this is the funniest card. And I was showing everyone in my house. And then they were like, did you just pull that out of a Bible? And I was like, yeah, I don't know why it's in there.
You like to be ironic to yourself.
This will be the perfect place to keep it.
Wow, that is so funny.
And I guess that was for a birthday or something like that. You always find the best cards. I've always said that you're the best gift giver. But also stuffed inside this Bible were pamphlets.
Oh.
So I had visited, when we lived in Memphis, Tennessee, or outside of it, we weren't that far from Nashville. And I probably went up to Nashville once a year for something. We've gone for shopping and whatnot. But I think I was up there once by myself for some kind of business trip situation. And I went to Franklin to do a walking ghost tour, like all by myself. I was like, I'm such a big girl. I'm going to go do this.
Yes. I have pamphlets on Franklin ghost tours here too.
So that's probably a lot of the places that I'm about to mention, or it's got my places on there, because that was what was inside this Bible was like 3, or actually it was like
that is so
5
funny.
pamphlets of different places that I guess I was like, I'm going to check this out. We're going to go back here. And I'm just like collecting pamphlets of like, because I'm going to come back and tell you, we've got to go investigate these locations. They say they're super haunted or whatever. Because it was just like a 1-hour walking ghost tour. They tell you some stories and then you're gone. It wasn't like a real investigation. So these were my put these locations on the list. Okay.
Yeah, and Nashville was super convenient to us because it was maybe a 4-hour drive with traffic and construction. It was ultra convenient.
If you really kick it, you can get it there in 3 hours.
Yeah. Oh. Or if there's a tornado, it might turn into an 8-hour experience. It just really depends.
Oh, Tennessee weather. That is fun. But these pamphlets, I was looking through them and I was like, we never got to investigate any of these locations, and now we've moved away and I don't know that we ever will go back for these experiences.
Yeah.
But I was like, I want to do my service to these locations. I'm going to do a podcast story on them.
It's just funny. I keep all of my pamphlets right here. It's sticking out of all of my pamphlets. It's the one that's like, it was like this. Here, I'm moving my camera so you can see my pamphlet bin. But it was like right here. So
it's like, hello, look at me.
That's so weird.
I stick pamphlets everywhere, obviously.
And yes, in Bibles.
And the desk that I'm sitting at, there's pamphlets and maps inside them, where in backpacks, in suitcases, I find pamphlets for haunted things, maps of cities I think are haunted, or states or whatever. I leave little trinkets all over the place so that I can find them and be like, oh, I remember this. I'm the worst about that.
I'll have to send you more cards.
So our story starts in 1830 with Fountain, that's his name, Fountain Branch Carter.
Wow.
He built, that's a fancy fucking name there. You don't hear that one often.
Wait, his last name is the most
Carter.
Normal of the 3.
We probably should have done that backwards or something.
Wow.
Put the Carter on the front.
That's interesting.
It's an interesting name. So Fountain Branch Carter built a 1.5-story brick house just south of downtown Franklin, Tennessee, for his family, his wife Polly, and their 12 children.
Come on, man. I know there's nothing else to do in Tennessee.
I don't think in 1830, they weren't.
Shit.
So, sadly, out of the 12, only 8 would reach adulthood, but for those times, those are decent numbers. Yeah.
Damn.
Still a lot of kids to take care of, So the sons were Moscow.
No.
Which doesn't seem like an odd name when you think there's a Moscow, Tennessee, too. And you wonder, did he have something to do with that? I didn't dig deeper into that. But Moscow, James Friedrich the 4th, but he went by Todd, and also Francis. The daughters, they're Mary Alice, Sarah, Annie, and Francine. Okay. Francis and Francine hated each other.
They must have.
They just were getting lazy at the end, or they were super in love with F names. I don't know.
I mean, I get it. Back in 1830, they probably didn't have the best baby names of the yearbook out yet. So it was probably tougher for them to come up with something, unique.
You would assume that they use a lot of family names then. And that's how they get it. They don't just sit around and think, I've always liked this name I've never heard of, or something like that. Or like a neighbor I met forever ago or something like that. I guess that could happen.
His wife's name was interesting. Her name was Polly. That's an uncommon name.
I love it though. It's so cute.
It is cute. Fountain and Polly.
Yeah. What a couple. Mr. Carter had a successful business within town, but after the construction of his new home, he saw the opportunity to pursue farming. Over the next 20 years, the Carter farm grew from just 19 acres to 288 acres. That's a big ass fucking farm.
Yeah, what were they farming?
Everything. Well, honestly, I didn't dig into it, but there's another plantation I'll talk about, and they were doing, tobacco and cotton, and they did have their own cotton gin, so obviously they're doing cotton.
Okay.
But I think that they can do things like, just vegetables itself, and then like tobacco was a big thing in that area.
Sure.
I don't know if they had livestock, but I mean, obviously that's an option as well.
Yeah, with 288 acres?
Yeah. I mean, so they grew this home and farm in value over those 20 years immensely. I mean, they did very well for themselves. And just 110 steps from the Carter House is the Lotz House, which was built in 1838 by German immigrant Johann Albert Lotz, which I think is who's the picture on your flyer over there? You don't know?
Oh, let's see. It's a lady that's on mine. I don't think that's a Johann.
No, I know. It looked familiar from something that I had researched, but I don't know. Maybe just all those ladies look the same.
She was a spicy Victorian Tennessee lady. Yeah.
Well, that's all of them. Mm-hmm. So Johann had purchased the land that he built his home on from the Carter family. So they were neighbors. Johann was a master carpenter and constructed his home all himself without the use of slave labor.
I thought you were going to say without the use of nails.
It's a log cabin. No, it's actually really big. It's fancier than the Carter's house, and it was very elegantly done. He used it to display his craftsmanship and his fine eye for detail throughout the house so that it could be a show home for a potential client.
Oh.
He was mixing business with pleasure. He knew how to make the most for his dollar. So Johann and his wife, Margaretha, bore 6 children: Paul, Amelia, Augustus, Matilda, and twins, Julius and Julia. It'd make more sense if Francis and Francine were twins too, but they didn't say they were, so whatever. A few short miles down the road from the Carter and Lotz house was the Carnton Plantation. The Carnton Plantation was built in 1826 by former Nashville Mayor Randall McGavick. It was a grand plantation home as well as a successful farming and livestock business. The home was inherited by Randall McGavick's son, John, after his death. John grew the farm's net worth to $339,000 in 1860, which is equivalent to $9.7 million to last year's money. Not even this year's money. Now it's $1 billion. No, I'm just playing.
That is a boatload of money back in the day. Before you even gave me the last year's equivalent, I was just like, 1800s, and he's making $339,000. That is a boatload of money.
Yes, they are fancy pants fucking people in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
They had 3 horses. I'm sure they had a lot more horses than that.
Shit, but, yeah, that's crazy. That's a crazy amount of money.
It is. They were doing quite well. Yeah. Honestly, we don't want to boast too much about them because we can assume why they were doing so well. They had free labor. They were assholes, deep down, but to them it was normal. Everybody was doing it, whatever. I'm not gonna even go there with that. But out of the 3 homes that I talk about here, this was the well-to-do family down the street, and it is the biggest house out of the 3, and it shows. It's very grand on the inside of it as well. Yeah. John McGavick married his cousin. Normal then, I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't want to include that, but then I was like, might as well. Don't want anybody calling me out. He married his fucking cousin, okay?
All right.
We don't all marry our cousins, but John did. So Her name was Carrie Elizabeth Winder, maybe. It's Winder. In December of 1848, they had 5 children total, but 3 of them had died at young ages. That's Martha, Mary Elizabeth, and John Randall. Their surviving children were Winder, and Hattie.
Wait, I thought Winder was their last name.
It's her last name, but they named one of their children. I like that.
Oh, that was her maiden name. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. I was like, what's your maiden name? Could you have named a kid after that?
Yes.
I get sidetracked within our podcast. I'm like,
Wait, go back to talking about how we've known each other for eons and be like, who are you?
Who are you? For years, these 3 families would enjoy a peaceful existence in their small farming town. But that all changed the day they would find themselves at the epicenter of the 5 bloodiest hours in all of U.S. history.
Hold on. My Ghost Tourism More doesn't say anything about 5 bloodiest hours. I would have been rushing right over to that tour.
Let me tell you about it then.
Okay.
In the fall of 1864, the Union Army, expecting the Confederacy to attack soon, began to mobilize large numbers of soldiers in the general area of the Carter and Lotz House. The Union soldiers cut down trees to prevent any surprise attacks by Confederate troops. They didn't want sniper attacks or anybody sneaking up on them in the middle of the night. And even poisoned the fucking water supply in the area just in case they got too close. It's like they're putting out rat traps, or whatever, trying to stop them before they get too close.
But poisoning the water supply. What were they drinking then?
Exactly. Where were they bringing their fucking water in? They found one pond and they were like, well, don't touch this. This is what we're drinking.
Right.
Listen, and they didn't let people know that this is what they were doing.
Oh,
the reason
come on.
that the families in the area found out is because, sadly, the Lotz children, the twins, Julius and Julia, were playing nearby the streams, and they drank the water or ingested it and then later died from the poisoned water.
Oh, those bastards.
I saw reports that they said that the children were only 2 years old at the time, which makes me wonder, why the fuck were you letting 2-year-olds playing around? What is happening here? Shouldn't a nanny or a mom be dying as well? Because they should have been right there with them. So I don't know if that's correct about the ages or anything like that, if they were toddler-ish or if they were actually 2 years old. But it seemed pretty, crazy that they were out by themselves. But they did pass away. I'm not sure about how old they were at the time.
Yeah. They were like, we could do with a few less kids around here. Twins, go play by that pond over there. Just hang out for a while, guys. We'll see you soon. Love ya.
Maybe they thought they were looking out for each other. There's 2 of them. They're fine. Buddy
system.
Yep. After the family realized the seriousness of the situation themselves and that their homes were in, I don't think it really hit them about what was going on and how much it could affect them until this happened to the children. So they realized war was fucking coming to Franklin. And they just didn't know what to do. They didn't know where to go. They didn't know when it was going to happen. They didn't know if this is something that's going to happen tomorrow or a year from now. But they realized that they were under this kind of, occupied territory situation and that it wasn't as free and happy as it used to be type thing.
No more hippies, huh?
Then, on November 30th, 1864, Lieutenant General John Bell Hood of the Confederate Army was becoming more and more frustrated. He had gotten news that Tennessee forces failed to contain a large amount of Union troops in Columbus the night before. I'm assuming they mean Columbus, Tennessee, because that does exist.
Yeah.
Though there is lots of cities named Columbus.
Yeah,
but I'm assuming they mean Columbus, Tennessee. It is close in proximity to the Franklin area. Hood, not thinking a damn thing through, ordered an all-out frontal assault against the Union forces at Franklin despite the protests of his other commanders.
Ooh.
Before daybreak, the Union Brigadier General, I like saying that.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting kind of general. Brigadier General. He's not no plain general or lieutenant general.
Yeah, no, it sounds like he's just a step above all you other basic generals.
That's Jacob D. Cox woke the Carter family and took possession of their house to make the parlor his own headquarters. The fighting began at 4 p.m. in the waning afternoon sunlight when 20,000 Confederates attacked a similar number of entrenched Union troops.
Oh, shit.
The Carter family and several of their slaves and the neighboring Lotz family took refuge in the north room of the basement as the battle began to rage around them. In the Carter house, by the way. For some reason, that's not properly in my sentence, but they're in the Carter house basement, not the Lotz family. I don't think they had a basement.
Yeah.
They also had a wooden house versus the brick home. So I don't know if that was their logic in all of it.
Oh, man. This sounds really scary.
Could you imagine? We were talking about tornadoes, you know?
Yeah.
And then, like, think of like, oh, well, this shit's going down and I have no control over it. What's the safest thing for me to do? Get in the bathtub, you know? I don't know. Yeah. That's what you do for tornadoes.
Yes, right. That's what you do. But it's like some guy comes in, he commandeers your home, and you're like, well, shit, there's really nothing I can do but hope for the best and hug my knees in the basement.
Yeah, and just wait for it to all be over with. And it's a really good thing that the Lotz family took shelter at the Carters instead of staying in their home because a cannonball crashed through the roof of their house.
Oh.
And a second floor bedroom before landing and rolling into the first floor, leaving an indentation that is still visible today.
Yeah, if it crashed through the roof. I can see where it landed.
Cannonball. You don't get that dent out, you know? I have some chipped tiles. Never fixing those.
The dent wizard couldn't take the dent off of that one.
No, it's pretty rough. Though the Carter house wasn't left unscathed. Bullet holes are still plainly visible in the walls of the farmhouse office building and around the entire brick home in the Carter house.
You think there's any bullets still in there?
Has to be.
That'd be crazy.
Who's going to dig them out?
I would.
Well, you know what? There's probably some historians and type people that have gotten in there and gotten that out. Because they were like, I need that. That'll be really
That's
cool.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I need that. Wendy, keep a lookout. I got to dig out a bullet.
But if we ever make it back to Nashville area and go to this house, we definitely inspect those bullet holes.
We get magnets, very heavy ones.
You know, the Birdcage Theatre has a bunch of bullet holes. We should check them out.
Oh.
They're all drywall and are stucco shit too, though.
Stucco,
so they could have fell down. Harder to find. You'd have to tear the whole wall up.
I don't want to be responsible for that. No, thank you.
No. Shit probably fell down.
Yeah, exactly.
So the Southerners advanced across an open field. Many of their Union opponents were armed with repeaters, which are basically like semi-automatic weapons. They didn't have to. It wasn't like a musket, you know. So they could shoot several rounds off. They have to cock it every time, but still, it's faster. And at first, the Confederate forces were actually breaking through the center of the Union line, but that didn't last long. And then they were beaten back. The resulting battle, believed to be the bloodiest hours of the Civil War, involved a massive frontal assault larger than Pickett's charge at Gettysburg. The majority of the combat occurred in the dark and at close quarters. The Battle of Franklin lasted barely 5 hours and led to somewhere around 9,500 deaths.
Shit.
Also wounded and captive and counted missing soldiers all involved in that as well. It was nearly 7,000 Confederate troops that died.
Wow.
Fountain Branch Carter's son Todd was serving as an aide to a Confederate Brigadier General, Thomas Benton Smith. What's with these 3 names on everybody?
They were all psychopaths. Isn't that what you do with them? You give them 3 names, right?
That's the thing. You're so right. During the Battle of Franklin, Todd was, serving this general, and he was shot down while leading a desperate charge just southwest of his childhood home. Todd was brought to the house where he died 2 days later.
That's sad.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, gosh, we're not even going to talk about that. You can never watch your child go through that. No, there's no right or wrong to what was going on. You just feel for your family member, Yeah. Down at the Carnton plantation, Confederate units formed up for the assault. As the battle wore on, wounded, combat shocked men drifted back to the mansion. The lady of the house, Carrie McGavick, opened her home as a hospital.
Ooh. But there's some paranormal shit going on at her place, huh?
The staff officer wrote that the wounded in hundreds were brought to the house during the battle and all through the night. And when the noble house could hold no more, the yard was appropriated until the wounded and dead filled that as well.
Oh, fuck.
On the morning of December 1st, 1864, the bodies of 4 Confederate generals killed during the fighting were all laid across the Carnton back porch.
Oh.
The floors of the plantation were stained with blood that is still there today. The heaviest stains are found in one of the southern-facing bedrooms because it served as the operating room.
Why did they bring them up to the porch?
Because they're special. Because they're generals.
Okay.
I don't know. Why they couldn't
leave them in the grass?
Yeah.
Where their blood wouldn't stain the shit?
I think making it an attempt to get them into the house to have, immediate care taken.
Oh.
I'm not really sure why all 4 of them were laid on the porch. It seems odd that they're all in the same place, but...
You think that's where they were running? They got up to the porch and they just, and then it happened to the next one, and then it happened to the next one.
What if they were all just chilling in a meeting, and then they were like, boom, 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 taken out? No,
they went out to have a smoke, and then they just, yep.
They weren't even involved in the war.
Right.
They just, just
watching it from afar, and they just got taken out.
No, I imagine it was something about making a place of honor for them, and that just happened to be, for some reason, the back porch.
Man, but their blood has soaked through those beams, and now the stains are still there.
Yeah, you can't get that stuff out.
No. I mean, you can't get blood out of a shirt, so of course you can't get it off of your porch either. The shit is just there.
It soaks into the wood, I know. That's how it just sounds weird. Anyway,
I know when you're very confident about murder and blood spatter and things like that.
Don't you know?
I know these things. Anyways, on to my story.
It's all those true crime shows. It's not that I'm a murderer, okay?
Long, deep pause.
Don't look at me. When the 2 families, the Carter and Lotz family, emerged from their shelter, the area was just a wasteland.
Damn.
Piles of bodies and evidence of brutal hand-to-hand combat were seen. Eyewitness reports say that it seemed as if some men had died standing up because their bodies were in the center of all these other bodies stacked around them so that they couldn't fall, once they had died. So they're just like corpses, standing up because of it. You ever watch the Battle of the Bastards on Game of Thrones? Well, it was like that.
What season was that?
6, 4, 5.
I mean, that seems like around the time when I started paying attention. I just don't remember that.
Yeah, I think so too. But it paints a good picture of what this might have looked like, I think. So in my fantasy world that I live in when I'm watching my bullshit shows, sorry. I know this is a real thing that happened to people. And here I am that one time on Game of Thrones? I'm so rude. During the night, the Union troops withdrew to Nashville, where the fortifications were second only to what was around Washington, D.C. at that time. Hood pursued, and on December 15th and 16th, Union troops under Major General George H. Thomas attacked the outnumbered Confederates, shattering what remained of their army and forcing it to withdraw to Tupelo, Mississippi.
Oh.
It is said that the Battle of Nashville was basically won at Franklin. I mean, they were already pretty beaten down.
Yeah.
In the years that followed the war, the Carter family made efforts to rebuild their farm and revitalize their livelihood, but the farm was never the same again. It was never profitable after the war. Moscow Carter, the oldest boy, I'm assuming, since his name was listed first, though I don't know that for fact, he sold the home and the land in 1896. The Carter House was purchased by the state of Tennessee in 1951, and it was first opened to the public in 1953. Today, it is managed along with the Carnton Plantation by the Battle of Franklin Trust and is dedicated to the Carter family and all Americans who fought in this battle. Their legacy is their mission.
So when it was sold, I guess, by Moscow, whoever he sold it to, it wasn't state of Tennessee at that point. He must have sold it to a family or somebody, and they kept the house up, I guess, until they were just like, I can't deal with all of this land anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like for a little over 50 years or whatever, maybe almost close to 60 years, it went from between other families before it was ever bought by the state to become what it is today, which is a museum and everything. But we don't really talk about who else lived there, or whatever.
It's weird. Like, at what point does someone just say, I'm not even going to bother with trying to sell this to another person who wants to live here. I'm just going to turn it over to the state. Like, how does that come up?
I don't know. Did somebody get super involved in the idea of restoring and preserving history that they were like, that house has got a lot going on. Are you about to sell that? Or maybe it sit vacant for a few years, not being able to be sold, maybe in rough shape type situation.
Yeah.
Who knows? But I imagine that could be the case. It transferred by owners through time. And then at some point it was just a little like, hey, I know what would be really great for that.
Well, I'm just curious because do you think I could sell my home to the state of Tennessee? I mean, I could spin some stories.
You tell them the Battle of Atoka was fought right there in your backyard.
That was won right here.
You know why that fence falls down all the time?
That's where, because of them ghosts.
It's not the soft ground.
Nope. The blood is stained on that board.
It's the troops charging through.
Epically.
Every
summer. After every windstorm. Whatever.
Right. It's not the tornadoes that go through there. It's ghosts.
Obviously.
It's the excuse for everything. Obviously.
I'm kind of up on a hill, so it makes sense. I was at an advantage. I was up at the top of that hill, so it was prime location for someone to come and, sit like they did at that one house. They came and they accommodated whatever was there on my land before.
Yeah, to watch what was going on. Yeah,
from up above.
I get it. I'm with you. I'll help you sell this idea.
Yes. I'm going to look them up as soon as we're done with this podcast.
The Atoka Preservation Society. We'll call them up.
All right.
So the Lotz family, after the war, they were overwhelmed with joy to actually see that their house was still standing, though it was damaged. But, Johann, he's a master carpenter, so he was quick to make the repairs to the house, and they were ready to get back to regular life. They struggled financially, and they saw hard times, but what really drove them away in the end is that, they kind of had an issue with their neighbors. See, remember, Johann, and not simply because he's a German immigrant, but he is a German immigrant in the South, and he did not use slaves to build his house, so he seemed to have a difference of opinion than a lot of people around him. And he also knew how to build pianos. Oh. And so he had built this piano, and then somebody had figured out that he drew a little design on the bottom of the piano, and it was a little controversial. So when the neighbors found out, they made threats to his life, and it forced him and his family to flee from their home. So this was an image of an American eagle holding up an American flag in one foot and a Confederate flag in the other. But that flag was pointing down.
Yeah.
I mean, some people could say he was recording history, and then a bunch of his nosy-ass fucking neighbors said that he was a hater.
Yeah,
so
you just don't do that shit down south.
Just think it, but don't say it out loud.
Yeah, right? Don't carve it into a piano.
He's like, I'm going to show them.
Right.
He just had to, express himself, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate, obviously, his frame of mind. He's a good person. But, the threat of assault from his stupid ass fucking neighbors basically made him be like, you know what? I don't need this.
Yeah, no shit.
So they lived in Memphis for a time, and then they moved across country to San Jose, California.
Wow.
Yeah, they were like, we're done with all of this.
Yeah, no. I want to say, as soon as you started describing the insignia, that I've seen that before, and it might have been on like Antiques Roadshow or something like that.
Oh, that would be cool.
It seems very familiar, the eagle with the two flags, and one is in the controversial like motion.
Yeah, I feel like I've totally seen it before too, and it wasn't on a piano, so it must have been a common sign of like, solidarity between the people that were against the whole thing in the first place.
Yeah,
but in that time after war, a lot of those people were seeing really rough times with new taxes and they couldn't make their livelihood. And I'm not making excuses for them, but I'm saying their whole world was fucking turned upside down.
Yeah.
So they were easily irritated by anybody that's like, y'all got what y'all deserved.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, I see that.
So, yeah, you don't want it. Bad neighbors, they make for a bad life. So,
yeah, I see that.
The McGavick family down at the Carnton plantation, they prospered fine, fair, I would say, after the war. They must have had like old money, so they were kind of okay. In 1866, Mrs. McGavick and her husband, John, gave 2 acres near their home and adjacent to their own family cemetery as a burial ground for nearly 1,500 soldiers that had passed away during the battle. Wow. Including 225 who were unidentified bodies. They assume that they're mostly Confederate soldiers that they had moved into this cemetery. They were buried somewhere, and then they were brought to this cemetery because it had been 2 years. And so they could make it a dedicated cemetery to the Confederates that had lost their lives. But they also took in like 225 unidentified bodies.
Just to spice things up, I guess, huh?
I don't know. I don't know why they were just like, yeah, and we'll take those few strays too. Because there's totally a cemetery that was dedicated to the Union soldiers during the battle as well. That's in Stones River National Cemetery in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. So I guess they didn't know what to do with these other ones. So the McGavick family said I'll take them.
You're just like all around our old hometown area, our old stomping grounds. Yeah, for real.
The McGavicks maintained the cemetery until their respective deaths. Today, the McGavick Confederate Cemetery is the lasting memorial honoring those fallen soldiers and the Battle of Franklin. The McGavick family owned Carnton Plantation until 1911, when Susie Lee McGavick, widow of the son, Winder, don't know, McGavick, sold it. Today, the town of Franklin is a poster child example of Main Street restoration of historic downtown area. Its streets are lined with boutiques and it's crowded with tourists and soccer moms. It's fancy pants.
It is very fancy pants. It is a cute fucking town, that's for sure.
It's adorable. And it's like, look at how cute we are. That's what Tennessee's all about, small town cuteness, right? But just a few hundred yards beyond that still stands these 3 homes that had bared witness to the carnage that once occurred there. All 3 locations serve as museums to preserve their history, and all 3 locations are haunted as fuck.
Ooh, and like, who's haunting? Because, there's so many possibilities at this point. There was so much shit, like you said, the carnage. So it could be, and they're haunted museums. Can you stay at a haunted museum?
Nope. I didn't see anything about overnights or anything like that, but they do ghost tours all the time. Oh. And then you can go in and just tour the home as well. I'm
acting like I didn't know that because they do.
What? You mean this pamphlet is telling the truth?
Oh my God, this is blowing my mind.
So, of course, stories of seeing Confederate soldiers, or just soldiers, period, on the grounds around the homes is very common, as is hearing the sounds of battle and even battle drums late at night.
Creepy.
Is it? Or is it kind of like, listen to that ghostly sound?
Like crickets? But it's like ghost drums coming closer.
The ghosts are very active this night. How nice. We love that. But at the Lotz house, the most popular ghost story comes from the Lotz children, actually. Often mischievous things happened within the home. People have felt their pant leg being tugged.
Oh.
And they've seen faces of children in the windows when no one's supposed to be in the house.
Are they sad faces, or are they like, peace out, guys? Come again. Come visit us again. Like, what are their faces like?
They don't say whether they're happy or sad. I mean, I would assume, if they know they're dead, they're probably pretty pissed about it.
Yeah, right.
So they're angry, grumpy little babies. Or they could just be like, this is great. Yeah. We have a whole house to ourselves.
I don't know. If they're only, tugging at pant legs and they're not, slicing at your ankles or anything, then maybe they're just like, hey, guys, come back and visit us again or something. Maybe they're a little lonely.
Yeah, I sadly think, what if they're trying to get your attention? Like, hey, man, pick me up. Take care of me, feed me. And then everybody leaves at night and they just sit at the window,
watching.
What the fuck?
Where are those drugs coming from?
They don't. Maybe they're watching that. I don't know. But, ghost children are always it's sad to hear about. And so you want to know that hopefully they accept what's going on, or they don't know better not to accept it.
Right.
So hopefully they have some kind of peace, even though they're still wandering around.
As children often do.
Tour guides have witnessed the apparition of a woman also in the Lotz house. She's wearing a nightgown and she's holding a candle and she's crying.
Oh.
So she's not fun. But
no.
She's upset, and apparently she calls for someone named Anne. It's believed that the woman is calling for Mrs. Lotz, whose middle name is Anne. I find that as a stretch.
Yeah, that's a stretch.
My middle name's Anne. I don't go by Anne. Never. No.
Never.
Nope. No one's ever called me that. So I don't think that Mrs. Lotz, her name was Margarita. So I said that kind of Spanish-like, but
well, when you showed me her name too, I thought, well, she doesn't have to be German. I wonder if she wasn't, and maybe she was a different nationality. But
oh yeah, you're right.
I thought there was an Annie. Wasn't there an Annie child?
Exactly. So nobody seems to piece this together that there was an Annie at the Carter house. They're neighbors. So that was one of the little girls.
Yeah.
So who also is said to haunt the Carter house. They say that Annie's still at the Carter house. So I'm not really sure why the Lotz house, their tour guides haven't pieced together that maybe this person is looking for her friend, her neighbor, Annie, who lived next door or whatever.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I don't understand why I didn't see that anywhere else. I could just be making stories up, but I thought it was cool to try to understand why these two spirits can't connect with each other. Why don't they, why can't she find Annie? She's just right next door, man. She's 110 steps away. There's probably a busy street in the way now. That's scary. I get it. But they're so close to each other.
As soon as you said that she's crying and calling for Anne, that was the first thing that I had thought too. I was like, well, wait, what about Annie? That doesn't make sense where they're not piecing that together. Just no, clearly it's so-and-so's middle name. Nope. Because if I'm crying as a spirit, I'm not going to be calling for Anne, my best friend. I'll be saying, Wendy.
Yeah.
Where's Wendy? I'm not going to be like, Anne, let's just change shit up. Because Anne ain't going to respond to me, ever.
No, I'd be like, who are you talking to? Oh, that's my name.
Right.
Do you ever forget what your middle name is?
I often try to. I hate it so much.
Yeah,
it's
right.
terrible.
Me too. If somebody called me Anne, I'm like, who are they talking to?
Yeah, that'd be me too.
That wouldn't register to me. So I thought that was strange. I guess they were trying to keep it within the house.
Yeah.
For anybody that's trying to investigate the house, or they're into the ghost stories and they're trying to connect it back to the people that lived there. Don't go tour that other house. They're obviously not working together.
Oh, they don't get a 3-for-1 special like you do in Salem. You get the sticker, then you get a discount when you go to this place and that place too.
When you go to all of them. They totally should. If I was marketing this shit, I'd be like, she's talking about her best friend, Annie Carter. Go next door and you can meet Annie. Go tell Annie that so-and-so's looking for her over
here. Right, exactly. You can spend $35 and just tour this place, or you can spend $40 and get all three. I mean, that sounds like a win-win.
Right. That's a deal.
That's what I'm saying.
I'd go for that.
Yeah, right?
But yeah, so oddly enough, in the stories of the Lotz house, nobody mentions like the fact that Annie Carter is said to haunt the Carter house and that they could be just trying to communicate with each other. But yes, in the Carter house, they are also experiencing ghostly activity, and they believe not only is it possible Confederate soldiers on the ground or just soldiers, period, on the grounds and all of that, but they think that the two names that they connect with the hauntings is Annie, one of the daughters, who didn't die during the battle, by the way.
Oh.
But, I mean, she lived out her days, but she was a part of helping to bring her brother Todd, who died during the battle, from the battlegrounds into the house. So that's a tough experience for someone.
Traumatic.
And that's a lot of emotion.
Yeah.
She could have imprinted, you know, and left there and left a piece of herself there.
Oh.
That's just my opinion. Again, making up stories. I love doing that. Anyways. I think I got this all figured out. So the house is said to be haunted by Annie and Captain Todd Carter, who was wounded on the battlefield and then brought to the house and later passed away. He's appeared several times in the Carter house. Once, when a visitor was looking around the first floor bedroom where Todd had died, Todd's apparition suddenly materialized sitting on the bed and then a few minutes later just vanished.
Oh, wow. Was someone sleeping in the bed?
No.
Oh, okay. I know it's a museum, but I was just curious. Like,
yeah, I mean, if you get a chance, nobody's paying attention, lay down.
Yeah, right. Just maybe that's why he disappeared, because he was like,
oh, excuse me.
Oh, shit. My bad. I mean, what are you doing here? And I'm gone.
One visitor during a tour immediately felt sick to their stomach once they entered the home, and the sickness worsened and worsened as they went down into the basement area. It got so bad that they had to excuse themselves from the tour. They returned to the first floor and waited there alone. While standing there alone, which is like, sounds like totally an excuse I would make to try to get in the house somewhere by myself.
Nice.
So note to self, pull that shit next time. But while standing alone, they heard a clicking sound and turned just in time to see a lock on a door moving by itself.
Oh, freaky.
They opened the door and there was nobody on the other side.
So the lock that they saw was turning, like they were inside a room and there was a lock that they could see physically being turned. So the lock was on the inside of the room, right?
Yes. Though I guess there are some kind of locks that if you're using a key on one side, you would still see it move, like a bolt type situation. Okay. So they could have been on the other side.
Yeah.
Either way, that shit was moving. They knew nobody was in the room with them. They opened the door to see if somebody's on the other side, and nobody's on the other side. So still something moving by itself.
Yeah.
Whether it's, you know, this kind of deadbolt or that kind of deadbolt.
Okay.
Still odd.
Yeah.
Another tour guest said that they felt overwhelmed with sadness within the Carter home once entering, and it continued throughout the tour, but once they left the house, they were completely fine. Employees have told stories of hearing men shouting. Some have also mentioned feeling like someone was watching them, and some even report being pushed or touched when they're alone. Sometimes I think, like, when something catches you off guard, it might feel like it's more aggressive.
Yeah.
So the touching and the pushing sound like two different extremes.
Right. Yeah, I've thought about that before, because it's like something could actually just be scared and trying to get the fuck through there. You just happen to be in its way. So it's not actually trying to harm you or frighten you. It's just trying to get past you as quickly as possible. You feel like either this wind or you feel pushed or whatever, and you're like, oh, I'm being attacked. But really the ghost is just like, y'all are freaking me out.
You're scaring me. Was at the James Eldredge house, and we've talked about this before because it's one of our podcast episodes, but I mean, there's something that came up on me, and yes, it didn't feel good, but it didn't physically push me, but it felt like it was telling me to get the fuck out.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, some of these things are not actual, like, shoving you down fucking stairs or nothing, but the feeling of the presence could be so heavy that it feels like it kind of, it's pushing you away type thing.
It can feel negative. just because it's something that's unnatural. You can't explain it, and your body reacts. And the only thing for you to do is to be scared or, fight or flight, that sort of thing. You got to go. Ugh.
Yeah. And I'm a flight.
Scooby-Doo.
So.
Let's go.
Given its dramatic and tragic history, it's not at all surprising that the Carter House is haunted, or even the Lotz House,
Yeah.
In an article by David Roth in the October-November 1986 issue of Blue and Gray, it's like a newsletter, maybe it's a magazine. I don't know. This is from 1986, so who the fuck knows? It's definitely not an internet post. So,
right.
The Carter House curator, Dolores Kestner, said a number of poltergeist pranks have happened within the Carter home.
Oh.
One hostess, Annie Mae, was conducting a tour when a visitor suddenly interrupted her to announce that a statue behind the hostess was jumping up and down on the dresser that she was kind of standing next to. And by the term statue, I envision more like a knick-knack, but I guess big enough that people think it's a statue, But it's not like a statue in a garden. It's not that. Okay. It's not like life-size.
When you said statue, that's exactly like I'm thinking of a fountain, like there's water spewing out of its mouth. But then you said he's on a dresser, so that I'm thinking like music box statue, I guess.
It's like a knick-knack, but large. It's a pretty big knick-knack or whatever.
All right.
And it's going up and down. So it's like a ghost could be picking it up and, moving it around.
Creepy.
Walking into the parlor on another occasion, hostess Cindy, another tour guide, felt a tug on her jacket. She turned and expecting to see like a child or something. She saw nothing.
Oh.
There was nobody there.
Love it.
That happened in a cemetery one time. You weren't there. I went with my mom because she likes to be adventurous like that sometimes, and my cousin, and I had a crossbody bag, and you could feel just something all of a sudden like pull on that strap. I thought my mom was behind me because, I'm all up in my camera, so I'm not paying attention. And I thought she must have been behind me, so I turned like I thought she was trying to stop me, and I was the last person. There was nobody behind me. They were all in front of me.
Wow.
So it's cool when you're like, oh, excuse me, but oh, there's no one there.
Yeah.
That's always a really cool experience. Like, I know I didn't just fucking make that up in my head. Something stopped me dead in my tracks for me to look and see, like, what do you need? And there's nobody there.
Yeah, I know what you mean. What cemetery was that at?
So it's next to the Bethel one. So it's the W.A. Rogers Cemetery.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. A third hostess, Mary West, actually saw the Carter girls' apparition, Annie's apparition. Oh. Mary had gone upstairs to shut a window when she heard a door close behind her. That's alarming.
Yes.
Mary ran to the door and opened it like, who the fuck?
Right.
in here? Because she thinks she's alone, and she saw Annie Carter run across the hallway and down the stairs.
Oh,
Mary
wow.
said she ran too, right out of the fucking house. She had to have known it was haunted. I guess she just thought it would never happen to her.
Sure, yeah. You don't expect to see something like that ever.
Yeah, so it always catches you off, and you're a little like, I need to step outside.
Yes, please.
So back to Annie Mae, she also reports that she was locking up the house one night. She was, kind of going through and she's having to clean up. She's with another tour guide. Her name's Emma, and they hear somebody's name be called, and it's Annie. They're like, Annie. And this is in the Carter house.
Oh my God.
But her name's Annie. So she's like, huh? And, looks. And she's like, okay, there's nobody there. Never mind. And goes back to what she was doing about closing up the house. And then again, they hear Annie. And she's like, I'm sorry. Am I supposed to? Do you need my attention? So it's unclear if this is some other kind of spirit that's trying to speak to Annie Carter, or if it's a spirit like Annie trying to call the other Annie. I mean, it's easy to kind of think that this person was trying to speak to Annie Mae when you hear that years before this, a lady named Nancy was working in the house to help restore it before they opened it up as a museum. And while she was in the house, she heard her name called. So it's far as I know, there's no Nancys in the Carter family.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's like intelligent versus residual. You're like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. But it's neat to think that maybe someone who spends a lot of time there can warm up to some spirit. And a Nancy, yeah, I didn't hear a single Nancy. Now I did hear some Annies. So,
There's lots of Annies all over the place. And then there was a time, like we spoke about before, that the Carter family, or I'm sorry, the Carter home was owned by other families.
Yes, right. True.
You don't really know what happened in those 60 years, that it might have passed by other owners, and if there was some Nancy in that. But it seems very odd that here are these two names being called out, and they happen to be people that are working within the home.
Yeah.
I mean, what are the chances that also there were people that lived in the home that were by that same name?
Right.
Obviously, Annie seems like a very common name with these spirits, but Nancy, I mean, to have the two show up, that's a bit interesting.
Yeah.
So what's there might actually be intelligent and not just residual, like seeing the soldiers, like hearing the battle drums, and that type thing. Maybe there is some intelligent spirits in these locations.
Right.
And last but not least, it is said that out of the 3 locations, the Carnton Plantation is the most haunted.
Oh.
Some people say it is the most haunted house in the entire state.
Interesting.
Yeah, we talked about that in the Myrtle Plantation episode.
Right. It depends on where you are.
Label these things. Yeah. At least they did, lower their standards to state.
Yes.
They didn't say in all of United States or the world or whatever.
Yeah.
They keep it local.
Nice, as many people should.
Yes. So Carrie McGavick cared deeply about the fact that so many men had lost their lives at her plantation home. That is why it was so important for them to designate the cemetery.
Oh.
So it is said that her spirit is sometimes seen as a full body apparition on the back porch of the Carrington Plantation, and the back porch overlooks where this Civil War cemetery is. So a lot of people think that she's like standing watch, just thinking about all those poor boys that lost their lives there.
Yeah. Wow, wouldn't that be neat to see? The full body apparition on the porch.
Yeah, like you just cruise around back and you're like, oh, look, there's a ghost right there.
There it is. And she's waiting long enough for me to take like 14 pictures.
That would be so nice, spirits. If any of you are listening to this podcast, please get yourselves together. Be a little patient. We got to get it out of our bag real quick. And,
Yeah, and then we got the batteries and the lenses and like the infrared lights and all that other shit. So just be patient with us. Let us take those pictures.
Just hold it. Hold your pose there for a second. So it seems like she might do that for you.
Sweet.
That's very generous of her. She's always been a very kind soul.
Nice.
So sometimes she is seen in a white dress. Others say she's in a pinkish gown. Tour guides are unsure if there are 2 separate spirits. This is a different lady in the pink gown versus the white gown. But it would make sense that sometimes she is seen in 2 different fashions, because when all these soldiers came to her home and it was operating as a hospital, not only did Mrs. McGavick jump in there and start helping kind of like as a nurse, so did her children as well. Like the whole family was taking part of caring for these wounded soldiers. And they said by the end of the night or that time, her dress was fucking stained with blood.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could see where that would look pinkish. Mm-hmm. So that like could be more of the residual. Yeah. And then her in white might be kind of like the memory of her afterwards type thing.
Yeah.
So it's like her in 2 different stages of her life, possibly.
Wow.
Again, I like making up stories and thinking if I was a tour guide, this is how I would tell
This is how I'd spin it. Right.
Some have even seen what they believe to be one of the general spirits pacing the back porch. This back porch is very busy.
Yeah. Just set up shop out there and just watch the porch.
Right?
Yes.
This is awesome. He apparently looks very worried. This spirit has been known to walk around the grounds as well.
Oh.
And occasionally will speak and have conversations with lone visitors. Like if you're by yourself, he might approach you and just start talking to you.
Oh,
I don't think he knows he's dead.
This guy is just trying to have his day-to-day. There's a stranger. I mean, is it like Jumanji style and he walks up to you and he's going to give you your quest? I mean, is that like it? That's what it kind of seems like to me.
So the people that have interacted with him, they say he comes up to them and gives them like advice to like prepare for this upcoming battle. You know, so he's still stuck in like, this battle's about to go down. Do you have your gun? Are you taking care of yourself? You know, are you ready? Because there was this one guy that had reported this whole story that sounded total make-believe to me. And that's so rude of me as a paranormal investigator to be like, that shit didn't happen to you. What acid trip were you on?
Oh, shit.
This guy came after hours to the plantation. He's going to pay his respects in the cemetery. He walks by the porch, and there's a horse and a guy on the porch. And as he walks up to the guy, the horse disappears.
The horse was on the porch?
Yes. No. So I did say that weird. So the horse isn't on the porch, but he's right by the porch.
Okay.
And the guy's on the porch.
All right.
And then the ghost horse disappears.
Whoa.
And the guy's like, hey, dude, did you just see that horse? Where the fuck did it go? And the general's like, I must have got shot like my horse did. I don't know.
Oh, no.
And then he's just talking to him like, basically like, a storm's a-coming. Are you ready? For this, do you got a gun? And the guy's like, no, I ain't got a gun. He's like talking to him. He claimed he thought that he was talking to like a reenactment person, actor, whatever they call themselves. And this whole thing played out. And then like once the general vanished, he's kind of like running back to his car, like, what the fuck, And I was like, you did not have a conversation with a ghost for like, it seemed like 30 minutes with all the description there's no way. Like I said, they don't stick around that long.
No, and this dude didn't pull out his phone. He's just like, dude, you mind if I get a selfie? Just,
that's a great costume you're wearing. Like, can I get a picture?
Right.
No, it never dawned on him, even with the horse disappearing. It took so long for him to catch on what was going on. Oh, I think he even said he started hearing the sounds of like battle. And that's like where he started being like, wait, what is going on? I don't see any other reenactment characters, here.
Well, now I can understand why he's like, I gotta go.
I think now I would have to be like, I need to go drink some water or something down from this. I don't know.
Right.
So from the description of everybody that's run into this general, the description matches General Pat Cleburne, which was among one of the generals that had passed away, one of the 4 that had died during the battle.
Wow.
He has a mustache and a short beard and piercing eyes. As all ghosts do. Mm-hmm. They all have the piercing eyes.
Just like Colonel Sanders.
Many have seen the apparition of soldiers around the gravestones. The activity seems to be heightened at dusk, which is around the same time the battle was fought.
Yeah. Soldiers
have been seen in the bedrooms of the house as well, as they may have spent their last moments in those spaces.
Oh, yeah.
Objects have been known to move in the bedrooms on more than one occasion.
Yeah, like that statue?
Yeah. Well, that was in the Carter House. This is the Carnton Plantation.
Oh, okay.
But yes, they were talking about a picture frame that kept constantly falling or whatever. And they would find it not only to like, oh, it just fell off this dresser and it's on the floor right in the dresser. Nope, it's on the other side of the fucking room. And everybody's like, why the fuck? And,
that's weird.
So that kind of thing kept happening. Yeah. Stuff was moved into different places that it's like shouldn't have gotten there, just had it fallen off the walls either,
Yeah.
Not only do numerous ghosts haunt the house, but like I said, ghost horses also like to hang out around there. That was seen once. And then everybody hears gun and cannon fire around the house and the grounds. And they hear unexplainable moans and sighs in the cemetery.
Oh.
Because a lot of these soldiers, like I said, when the house was full up, they just started putting them out in the yard and stuff too.
Oh, man.
So where they rest now might have been like right where people passed away as well, or themselves even passed away.
Dang.
But not all of the hauntings at the Carnton Plantation are connected to the Battle of Franklin. Nope. In the 1840s, a young house servant girl was murdered in the kitchen by a jealous male who was offended when she rejected his advances.
Oh, wow.
So he strangled her.
Oh, so that's how he deals with that sort of rejection.
Right.
And you die.
How dare you?
No one rejects me.
Yeah, I bet he won a lot of ladies after that.
Yeah, I bet so.
So her spirit is said to haunt the house. She's mischievous, apparently. But all she does is like her job in the kitchen. I mean, like they say she's mischievous because she moves shit around the house, but they blame that on the soldiers too.
Yeah,
so,
right.
I mean, like, who's at fault here? They also say they hear disembodied noises in the kitchen as if someone's like working, and it's around the times of like, you know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner or whatever. So kind of residual sound. They hear the sound of running water when water's not actually running. So mischievous or like she just fucking getting her job done. I mean, like, I don't know. They have a weird definition of mischievous.
Mischievous. Yeah. She's so mischievous. She's in there cooking.
Yeah. Ooh. Like you're just having, ooh, aren't you having a good time cooking, you silly thing? No.
I know, right? Now, if she was actually making you like biscuits and gravy, right? And then you went there because you saw the plate all full of food and that shit then vanished. That's a little mischievous.
That would be hilarious. That's a good one. But they say that stuff moves around the kitchen too, and it's put in odd places. But that was happening in the bedroom, so you really don't know who that is. Yeah. And I mean, is it really that odd? Like, she's supposed to be in control of the kitchen. Maybe you're not supposed to be walking your fucking ass through there. I mean, like, maybe you're in her way.
So I'm going to move the salt from here to all the way the fuck over there. That's what you get, sir.
The McGavick children are also believed to haunt the home, like the Lotz House. They have seen children peering out the windows. That's all they do. And then they talk about shit getting moved around, you know, like it could be anybody. There's soldiers, there's the house servant, there's the children, you know, I think they're all up to some nonsense.
I mean, they're bored. They're like, let's just rearrange stuff. I don't like where this
just
is.
Fuck with them. We have nothing else better to do. So the Lotz House was on an episode that the Tennessee Wraith Chasers did.
Oh.
It was when they did their Haunted Live.
Oh.
Not that much happened. If you ask me, it was all the same kind of reports. They were getting hits on their equipment and they were hearing like weird bangs and stuff like that. It was basically, you know, it went along with a lot of the things that people said about the home already.
Yeah.
But they didn't see any extraordinary apparitions or anything like that.
Yeah. Ooh, those Friday night late episodes of the Haunted Live, and I skipped quite a few of them. I was just like, no, guys, I can't.
It is a long period of time of a lot of them trying to just fill it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess that's like because maybe they really did. I guess they did really record these things live and stuff. So you can't control when ghosts want to appear.
No.
So that it didn't really come from too much from that, but if people want to go and watch that, you can find it on YouTube and watch the whole thing. That's the only place that I found it. The Tennessee Ghost and Paranormal Investigators are NGPI. They published photos taken at the garden plantation. They said that in these photos, which I'm going to send to you right now, it shows a man sitting on a bench to the right of the door and a woman in a large dress standing to his right. So this was the only like kind of cool evidence that I could find online. You very much have to zoom in.
Well, somebody drew like a square around the guy sitting on the porch. Yeah. Okay. So that one
Just
I see.
In case you didn't see it.
Right.
I think that's the one that the woman, the white next to him, is supposed to be her dress.
Okay.
I honestly not too into that photo as I am the one that you get more of a view of the porch. It does look like there's a total guy sitting in a chair. You see the one, I think it's the first one I sent you.
Well, the first one you sent me, there's like a guy like walking like out in the yard. You see him like blocking the railing and everything.
Yes, there is. I did not even see that.
That's like really crazy.
See, they claim that nobody was on the porch.
Okay.
They did say that there were people headed out, or not that they were headed out. They said that their people were in the cemetery.
There's somebody on that porch.
There's somebody on the porch. So that I focused on that. It's a full moon. I just realized that too, where it looks full. So the person on the porch definitely shouldn't have been there. Kind of out in the yard. It almost looks like there's two people standing near each other, possibly. You see like this white, could be like their sweaters or shirts or whatever. I don't know. You assume that that's their gang, maybe going out to the cemetery. But you're right. That darker shadow, I guess I need to go back to their website and find out, did they say that anybody was near the porch? They said they were all out in the cemetery, and this one person was like kind of taking pictures by himself or themselves, because I don't know if it's a girl or not, and caught these figures near the porch. That's my favorite photo. The one with the square beside it, it's rough to me.
Yeah, it is rough.
I know they put that square and everything, but I
No.
I don't really see it.
I'm just happy that in that same photo they didn't put the squares around the orb that's up there.
I know. They didn't even talk about it. Good for them.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to know more about that other picture. That the first one that you sent me, I mean, you see that dark silhouette of a person, but I mean, there's definitely, like you said, there's something on the porch. And it has a face, and it looks like it's looking right at you. That's pretty creepy.
If there is seriously nobody on that porch, if they're telling the truth, that's a dude on a porch.
That's amazing.
I mean, you see like his fleshy face, his fleshy hand,
right?
Because it's not like it's wide or anything. And then he's wearing like a white shirt, and he's sitting in like a rocking chair or something like that on the porch.
Yeah.
And then that dark shadow is very interesting. I got to go back and figure out, because I swear they said nobody was on this porch.
That's kind of a weird one. And then, like you said, there's those two things that are out in the yard. To me, they look like butterflies.
Yeah, you can't tell these are people.
Right.
You just know it's really dark, and then all of a sudden there's these two white things. Yeah. So they could be signs. They could just be some other kind of structure in the yard. Yeah. It's not explained, but I'm saying ignore that. Yeah. We don't know what that is. But the guy said that everybody was at the cemetery, or I say guy, I really don't know. And that he was just taking pictures. She was just taking pictures of the house. So there should not have been any live persons in that photo.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So that was better than what the Tennessee Wraith Chasers
yeah, well,
and that's to no fault of theirs. Right. We've had investigations that were supposed to be, oh my God, this is the most haunted place in the world. Right. And that night the ghosts, they just weren't feeling it. No. They didn't give us anything to write home about. No. So that kind of stuff happens all the time.
It does happen. That's the funny thing about the Tennessee Wraith Chasers, because they're like, y'all come out now. We're filming a live TV show, so it'd be nice if you guys come out.
We're only here for an hour. So, TikTok motherfuckers. You would never talk like that. That's how we would talk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I wonder why they weren't talking to us that night. They're like, okay, yeah, we're coming out now.
Not doing nothing for y'all. Rude. So that's it. I just wanted to pay respects to those pamphlets that I had collected
over the years, so many years ago.
Kind of just let that story go. I may never make it back to that area again, being that I'm, on the other side of the country. You are kind of somewhat, too, there's so many places to explore. Tennessee's always home, and I always make my way back there. Yeah. But
it's family stuff.
And they don't let me make time for these things.
Now we're at a point where we're trying to figure out how we can get back to Tennessee to do our paranormal investigations. Whereas before, when we lived there in Tennessee, we were trying to find any other state that we could go to. Get us the fuck out of Tennessee, please.
Had I realized that I truly would move away sometime, I would have invested more time in all the stories and legends throughout Tennessee. Yeah. And
Mississippi.
It's not over with yet. So, I mean, we could make it back there, but, I just never know when that will happen. So I wanted to share the story of these 3 historic homes and the situation that they were put in, because it was pretty fucking horrendous.
I loved your story. And there's always the possibility that one of us will hit the lottery, and then we can just go wherever we want from then on.
Just full time.
Just nonstop road trip, living the dream.
Yeah. I want to live, the 2 of us, in an RV.
visiting all the paranormal hotspots.
We'll have to figure it out, like weather-wise, when it's best to be in those areas.
Yeah, right. So. Snowbird that shit.
Yeah. But yeah, so I was saying, if you're from the Tennessee area, I'm from the fucking Tennessee area. But no, if you've experienced anything at these locations, I read lots of comments from people that have. So if you're listening to this podcast, if you're one of those people, share your story with us a little more in detail. You can email us directly at creaturesofthenightparanormal@gmail.com with your story from anything from Tennessee, but from this Nashville, Franklin area would be really cool. Or you can hit us up on social media, at COTN_paranormal on Instagram. And then on Facebook and Twitter, it's COTN paranormal. There's no underscore. So, we say it all the time if you're listening. But like I said, if you're new, that's the way to get in touch with us. We'd love to hear your stories. We'd share them on the podcast if you share them with us, unless you tell us not to. That's weird, though. Why are you writing us?
Yeah.
If you just want to become secret best friends with us, that's cool, too, I guess.
Sure.
Then, yeah. And we've got an Etsy shop, and you can also shop on our website. It's the Spirit Emporium. You can buy things to enhance your experience searching for the paranormal and also protect yourself from that shit too, because you never know. These sound like pretty calm, mellow spirits. I think
they sound like playful spirits.
Yeah, I think you're fine in these areas, but we do have things to enhance your experience in communicating with them. So that might be what you're looking for in this one. I don't think you need to just like go full on with sage in your self.
Yeah, right. No, but some of those places that you do go to, you do want to full on sage yourself and your equipment, because something might be coming home with you. You don't want that hanging around your house and your family. You just never know what's going to come home. So
that's it. That's all I got for
Thanks for sharing, Wendy. That was cool.
Yeah, you're welcome. I don't know why I'm being so awkward.
All right, then. Then I guess we'll say goodbye.
Bye.